Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, The 9 to 5 Musician. If you're new here, my name is Maggie and this is a channel dedicated to everything related to living a creative and healthy lifestyle. Now today we're talking about online lesson setup. This took such a long time for me to kind of perfect, but I finally have a really good working system, and believe me, it took a while, but now I'm happy to share with you all how to recreate it so that your lessons can go smoothly. Okay, so the first thing that I did was find a webcam. Now I tried out several of them, ordered them, sent them back, and the one that I ended up liking the most is just this simple webcam here called the Jellycomb 1080p HD webcam. Now this has a lot of good features. So for one, the quality of the image is very good. It's a nice wide angle lens, so you can see most of the piano. I do shift it around sometimes, like if you're going to the extremities of the registers, but in general, it's pretty good. I also like that this does really well in low light, so sometimes I, take this places, and I never have a problem with things looking dark. I actually usually have to dim the lights because it does so well in getting a clear and crisp image with low light. So that's a really good feature as well. And I also like the mounting of this. Specifically, I'll show you how I mount it to my overhead stand. But you can swivel this camera any direction you want, which is really helpful because if you've tried to set up an overhead view, you know the limitations of which way you can turn your camera so that you don't have a mirrored image or upside down. And this took me a long time to figure out. I couldn't find any video on the internet to explain how to position it correctly so that it looked like you were looking at the piano instead of upside down. So I'm going to go ahead and now walk you through what my actual Zoom meeting looks like from both camera angles. Okay, so as you can see, this is just the general first hello opening camera angle. This is simply just my computer, not the best quality, but it does fine for lessons. And this is, how I talk to my students and usually go over instructions, things like that, so that we have a personal connection. But now I'm going to switch over to the overhead camera. So this is the view from the webcam, and as you can see, it's not mirrored, it's not backwards, it looks exactly like you would see if you were in a lesson. So that's why I love this setup. And as you can see, it's incredibly bright and a nice crisp image. So that's my webcam. Again, it's linked below if you would like to get it for yourself. I highly recommend this, and it's only about $35, so it's a nice deal as well. So the next part of my setup that has really upped the game is just having external lighting that's specifically meant to create a better image. So I actually have these two kind of soft box lights that you would typically use for photography. They're by Roleno, and I use one and my husband uses the other one during his lessons, so it's actually worked out really well. And I like this because it's a very bright bulb, but it has the softbox over it. And I found that this just kind of clears up the image for everyone. And I think that for the teacher, if you can have a great setup, then it's going to make the lesson go so much better. So this is definitely another thing that I would encourage. It's not necessary, but of course it does kind of up the quality and the enjoyment of the lesson. Okay, so the main event of this, at least for me, and hopefully it's helpful, is the overhead setup. I spent so long trying to find a good option for an overhead setup, and this is by far the best and cheapest option that I found. If you go on YouTube and try to find different things, there's just crazy setups. They're of course they look amazing, but they're not super efficient unless you only teach online lessons for the rest of your life. They're hard to put up and take down. And so this has been amazing for me. This is simply just the double bear overhead phone stand. You can find it on Amazon. It's about $50, but this is the best $50 that I've spent on my online setup because it is perfect. It's so easy to use, and I haven't had any problems with it. So as you can see here, it's just a very small little setup here, and it's very heavily weighted at the bottom, which is great, so it's not going to tip over. And I just connect my webcam to the arm that extends out, which is extremely important. That's what I was trying to find, something that extends quite far over the side so that you can get that good view of the top of the piano. And this is adjustable in many ways. The angle of the extending arm, the height, how wide you want it to go out in front of you. So this is like perfect. It's such a random little option, but this has been exactly what I was looking for. So I would highly recommend this if you've been trying to find something to get a nice overhead view. Okay, so the next part, extremely important, which is the audio. So we have a good video now, lighting, everything, but the audio is extremely important. And honestly, most people can forgive bad visuals if you have really clean and crisp audio. So the setup that I'm using now is a little bit fancier, and you don't, of course, need this setup just for, a few lessons here and there. We have a blue snowball microphone, just like a plug-and-play USB microphone, which works great for lessons, and my husband uses that one. But we have one. So what I've done is actually started to use my XLR mic through Zoom lessons just to get some really clean and crisp audio. So I just hooked this up through the interface that we have borrowed from a friend, which is linked below. It's by Focusrite. And again, this is kind of like a fancier setup, so it is a little bit more expensive. But for me, I'm constantly teaching online lessons, so it's just made my life so much easier and lessons more enjoyable. So the microphone that I do use is the Audio-Technica AT2020, which you can see here. It's really good and it's multi-purpose. I don't just use it for Zoom lessons. I use it for recording, for streaming, for lessons, for a multitude of things. And it was about $100. So for me, I've already made that back exponentially. So for me, it was a really good investment. And if you constantly teach online lessons, I think it's worth investing in something like this just to up the communication level and make it a more enjoyable experience. All right, so the next one seems kind of silly, but it's really important, and it's by far caused the most issues and frustrations in lessons, and that's just how to set up the camera. Now, most people are not actually using a camera. They're using a computer, which is what I use, a tablet, or dare I say, a phone. Some families like to use the iPhone. It's really hard for the teachers to see because it's very small, but the quality of video can be okay sometimes, but it's not the best option. So now for tablets and computers, what constantly happens in lessons, which is funny once or twice, but then becomes frustrating for everyone, is falling off the camera, tumbling down, or not being able to see the kid, either their hands or their face or anything. So it becomes very, not personal, disconnected. So the best thing that I found, which is a very easy solution, is to just use a music stand. I use my husband's traveling music stand here. It's by the company Peak Music Stands, and he just takes us to gigs, but it's actually very sturdy and it holds my computer very well. And the thing I like about this is using a music stand allows you to adjust the height, the distance, and the angle all in one go very easily. You're not stacking books, you're not moving tables or furniture around to get some amazing setup, which usually doesn't work anyway. So I've recommended this to many of my students and they've switched over, and we've seen a huge improvement in the lessons in general. So if you are constantly searching for how to set up your camera or computer or something, just get a little music stand because it's going to solve everyone's issues and make the lessons run much more smoothly in general. So that really covers the main big items that I use constantly. But if you wanted to get the most efficient setup, there are also a few tiny little detail things that can help. For instance, having a USB hub. So if you have a Mac or something, the limited ports on the side, especially the newer models. So I have this USB hub from Hub Drive, and I like it because it just magnetically snaps on the computer. So it's very efficient and it's very small. It doesn't take up a lot of space and it's not wires running everywhere. So that just kind of helps streamline things. Another thing, if you want to use the interface and this XLR setup, you'll just need a few cables, like a 12-volt cable for power. You also need an XLR cable and maybe a mic stand. So just like a few extra things that at the beginning I didn't really know how to put together and I found frustrating. So I just wanted to quickly mention those little details because they can make everything much more easy and stress-free. So again, everything that I've mentioned today is linked below. If there's any part of this setup that you would like a more in-depth video on, like please leave me a comment and I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this and found it helpful to create a really nice and efficient online studio setup. Let me know if you try any things out and if they work for you. And as always, if you enjoy this content, go ahead and subscribe. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. And we will see you in the next one. Okay, bye guys.